Welcome to Other Stages, episode 24. This is part 2 of my road to Edinburgh. This is the second of 3 special episodes I'm doing where we take a look behind the scenes at my preparations for the upcoming Edinburgh Fringe Festival in August. Now you'll also notice we're in a little bit different space here. Well, this is kind of my office in the back of the house, and the reason we're here is because we have evaporative cooling in our house. Now, evaporative cooling is nice in that it's very inexpensive to operate, but it's also a little on the noisy side, and it's not quite as effective on days that are 109 degrees. So back here in my office, I still have good airflow so we can keep cool, and we can avoid any noise issues. But this space is really compact, and so to get a decent camera shot, I'm having to use one of my action cameras with a wide angle lens. So anyway, let's start with a little bit of music as we always do. This was recorded at an earlier episode. It is a Prelude in E-flat major by J.S. Bach. It is known as the St. Anne. It's a little longer than the opening pieces I normally do, so just kick back and enjoy. The Edinburgh Fringe Festival is the world's largest arts festival. It runs the entire month of August and features over 50,000 performances of well over 3,000 different shows in hundreds of venues. The Edinburgh Fringe started in 1947 as an alternative to the Edinburgh International Festival. It takes place annually in Edinburgh, Scotland. The Edinburgh Fringe has become a world-leading celebration of arts and culture, surpassed only by the Olympics and the FIFA World Cup in terms of global ticketed events. As an event, it has done more to place Edinburgh in the forefront of world cities than anything else. It is an open access performance arts festival, meaning there's no selection committee and anyone can participate with any kind of performance. The official Fringe program categorizes shows into selections for theater, comedy, dance, physical theater, circus, cabaret, children's shows, musicals, operas, music, spoken word, exhibitions, and just events. Comedy is now the largest selection, making up more than 1/3 of the program, and the one that in modern times has the highest public profile, due in part to the Edinburgh Comedy Awards. The festival is supported by the Fringe Society, which publishes the program and sells tickets to all events from a central physical office and online, and offers year-round advice and support for performers. The Society has a permanent location at a place called the Fringe Shop, and that's on the Royal Mile. Last year, the festival, of course, was canceled for the pandemic, and this year it's going to be online with the possibility of some in-person performances, and that's why I'm able to go this year. Now, most Fringe festivals are run and operated by volunteer staff. The Edinburgh Fringe, on the other hand, is run by a full-time, year-round professional staff. The application was a very long and complicated process, and this is my first time. But my hat's off to the Fringe Society. They have been extremely helpful and have offered personalized assistance throughout the application process. They have really done a terrific job and just been a joy to work with. So let's take a little break here for some music before we talk about how I'm filming Bach-n Roll, The Unconventional Life of Virgil Fox. This is my ambient work called Awakenings. So basically, for my online show at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, I need to make a movie version of my show, Bach-n Roll, The Unconventional Life of Virgil Fox. This comes with several challenges. The first is copyright. If I am performing a live in-person show, I am free to play recorded music and sound bites, even if they are copyrighted. Royalties are paid through either the venue and or the festival's licensing. But if I make any kind of video of my show, any copyrighted material that's contained in that show has to be covered by what's called a sync license. Now, sync licenses were conceived of for the motion picture industry, and the fees involved, well, they're based on the economics of big Hollywood blockbusters. In other words, the price is way too high for a guy like me. In its original form as a live in-person show, Bach-n Roll contained recordings of Virgil Fox talking and playing. For my video version, I have to make some adjustments so that I'm not using any copyrighted recordings. My good friend John Major was kind enough to record all of the Virgil Fox quotes used in my show so that I can avoid any legal issues. John has a beautiful voice and did an outstanding job, so let's enjoy an example.
I am determined that this shall not be a stuffy occasion, and if I come here occasionally to look you in the eye, it's because I enjoy seeing those to whom I am addressing myself. Virgil Fox.
I will also only be using recordings of me playing public domain music for the show. Now, I also wanted to film this show so that it looks like I'm somewhere, other than my office. This required doing a composite shot with a green screen. Now, I don't have that capability, so I called upon my good friend Shane Scurvy Spears, that you've seen as a guest on this show. He has better equipment and a lot more knowledge about this. So at his house, we set up a green screen and he did a composite shot. This is what the setup looks like. I'm just standing in front of a green curtain, and we have a camera and an audio recorder capturing the sight and the sound. This is the same way they do those impossible action shots in movies. Once the video is captured, Shane loaded it into his editing software, and he told the software to just ignore that particular shade of green. Then he inserted a photo I took, and now it looks like I'm in an appropriate location for my show. Shane was able to adjust the angle and the scale and the lighting so that it all looks like it fits together. Now, most of you have seen the Porta organ. It's a special platform I built specifically for my ambient style organ music. So let's enjoy a performance on the Porta organ of the Inescapable Past. So, in addition to avoiding copyright issues and sync licenses and getting a composite shot and getting the quotes recorded and everything else I have to do, Bach-n Roll, The Unconventional Life of Virgil Fox contains 5 live music selections that are part of the storytelling. Now, normally I would just step over to the organ console and play the music. But in this case, I have to record them as segments that we insert into the video presentation. There are no copyright or sync licensing issues here. All of this music is public domain and I'm the performer. Now, in past in-person performances, having an appropriate organ on stage has been an issue. Churches are really kind of reluctant to do this kind of thing, and theaters, well, big or small, they usually do not have an organ. So I usually have to bring one of my own, and this often involves running an organ that weighs hundreds of pounds up a flight of stairs. If you follow other stages, you know that I am building an instrument called the Franken organ. That's because it's built entirely from discarded organ parts. This will be a semi-portable organ I can take to a variety of venues. But for this online presentation, I have several options. I can record here at the house on my Rogers 825, known as the big organ. Or I could go to one of the churches, many churches I work for, and record it there. Or, if all goes well, I can use this. This is a custom Johannes organ that my boss is giving to me. If all goes well, by the time you see this instrument will be in my position, and I will be able to record all of the music for Bach-n Roll on this instrument. This instrument is in very good condition, but it does need a few repairs. Also, I'm not getting any of the audio gear, so I'm going to have to create an appropriate audio system out of equipment I have on hand. But once it's set up, I will have a wonderful organ, not only to record all the stuff for Bach-n Roll, but for my other shows like this one, other stages. Now, I have never actually owned a new organ, but I've always had a nice instrument to practice on. And that's simply because I've always been in the organ business. From the time I was a teenager, I could always find a way to round up an orphaned organ, usually for free or a nominal cost. Fix it up, have it for a while. So I have owned over the years 1 Moeller, 3 Wicks, 1 Wurlitzer, 4 Hammonds, 1 home-built Custom, 1 home-built Schober, 3 Allens, 5 Rogers, and now 1 Johannes, for a grand total of 20 organs. I have always had a nice instrument to practice on, and somehow I managed to turn a profit on the lot. But I think the big Johannes is going to be with me for a while. I don't see me running into anything bigger that I would need to sell the Johannes for to make space. So you've seen the Porta organ, and I'm putting together the Franken organ as a touring instrument, and I've always referred to the big organ I use for this show normally as the big organ. So I'm thinking we're going to dub the big 4-manual Johannes Tony's really, really big organ. So for my final musical selection, let's hear the St. Anne Fugue by J.S. Bach. Now, I played the Prelude at the beginning of today's show. Both that Prelude and Fugue are the bookends of a much larger work, but in most cases, just the Prelude and Fugue are played as a set. Thank you all for watching. If you'd like to support my online work, you can always find my Venmo, PayPal, and Patreon links in the video description. Now, on next week's show, we're going to look at the editing process. We're going to see some samples of the show and how it goes together. And, of course, we'll have more music, and hopefully from the new big organ. Thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you next week.